Tonight, Q tells us to think logically and expect justice. Plus, we cover what's going on with Dr. Jerome Corsi. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. For those of you who don't know, I start off each one of these episodes by saying thank you to each and every one of my subscribers. Without you guys, truly, this channel would not be possible, so thank you to each and every one of you. And if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please come here to this landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way, as soon as these videos get posted, you'll be notified. But we're going to jump right into the latest Q post. So we have a lot to cover here, and we're going to go over it step by step. But first, we're going to read through it, and then we're going to go back over each and every one of the statements that are made here. So there's a lot to cover. Stay tuned. At the end of this episode, we're actually going to cover Dr. Jerome Corsi and what's going on with him. Now, it started out where Dr. Corsi had been putting out information that was very interesting to hear, and it was very enlightening in certain regards to letting us know about certain aspects of what Q was posting. But now it seems as though he has taken a turn in another direction. Now, I'm going to talk about a few different things, but what I'm going to talk about with Dr. Corsi has a lot to do with the fact that he is being accused on most of the forums now, and a lot of people are interpreting Q's post to say that what he is engaged in is a sort of profiteering off of the Q post, where he's not actually a believer in the movement, and that he's actually trying to warn us against following Q, which would be contradictory to what we've encountered so far. Q's been predominantly right in pretty much every regard. And there's some proof that's pointed out by a very, very great Redditor by the name of Serial Brain 2. If you guys don't know him, you guys should get on Reddit more often, especially on the Q boards, because he is or they, I don't know who they are, they are a very good source for information. But we're going to get into that at the end of the episode. First, though, we're going to talk about the Q post. So, think logically. Mass exodus in D.C. Mass exodus. Corporate CEOs. Why? Who has the power? Who has the control? If POTUS was not in control, would they be retreating? Who is the Attorney General? Who must approve the firing dismissal of Department of Justice officials? Reread drop. Department of Justice organization change. Open source. More in pipe. Who is the FBI director? Who must approve the firing dismissal of the FBI agents? Reread FBI organization change. Open source. More in pipe. If Sessions and Wray are in our DC swamp deep state, why are they cleaning their respective houses? Use logic. Why are they slow walking the unredacted data? Why are they slow walking document disclosures? Why is the White House backing up the Department of Justice? What if the same data is being used by other investigators? What does it mean if a grand jury is impaneled? Why are confusing questions asked as to outcome regarding Mueller? What would be the purpose of creating confusion? What was Sessions' Senate confirmation vote? What was Rod Rosenstein's Senate confirmation vote? If Rod Rosenstein is dirty, Mueller must also be dirty. If Mueller is dirty, Rod Rosenstein must also be dirty. Common denominator? Why did Sessions pick Rod Rosenstein? Everyone has an opinion. Few have the facts. Few know the plan. Midterms. Killbox. Save and push. Swing voters to retake House Senate. Impeachment proceedings open source initiated. Power at all costs. Blue wave? Use logic. Why must the Department of Justice and FBI be cleaned first? What is the Department of Justice responsible for? What is the FBI responsible for? Why did HRC get a free pass? Use logic. Define single shooter. Who is Huber? Define Inspector General. When does Sessions step back in? Already is? Why did Sessions secretly engage Huber? Why did Sessions reveal Huber? Timing is everything. Department of Justice does not discuss ongoing investigations or confirm specific matters. What about the active investigation into leaks? Quote, Horowitz oversees a nationwide workforce of more than 450 special agents, auditors, inspectors, attorneys, and support staff whose mission is to defeat and deter waste, fraud, abuse, and misconduct in the Department of Justice programs and personnel, and to promote economy and efficiency in department operations. End of quote. Why did Mike Pompeo step into the CIA prior to the Secretary of State? They are deeply connected. Think offshore. Military intelligence providing support during this time. Why are select executive orders aggressively being written and put into law? State, CIA next. Think logically. No outside comms. Justice. Q. Okay, so for those of you who are still with us, that was incredibly long, but it is incredibly telling. And we're going to put this together piece by piece, and we're going to back it up with a lot of facts that we've looked up, that I've looked up to bring to you here. And then I really want to hear your take on a lot of these things down in the comments, because that's going to make all the difference in the world when we break down these posts together. So, first, think logically. Mass exodus in D.C. Well, article from a while ago, September of 2017, talks about this mass exodus that was happening as the House GOP was worrying about how members were getting out of the way because they understood the Trump train was coming. So they knew who was in control. And I think that's the takeaway from this, that this has just happened. And it's a picture of Paul Ryan here, almost fortuitously taken. If you look at the date here from September 14th, 2017, and now he is not seeking re-election. He has decided to resign from his office and his position as the Speaker of the House for good reason, because he's obviously been implicated in some kind of nefarious activities. So please follow me on this as we go forward. But mass exodus corporate CEOs. Now you have an article here out of Bloomberg talking about how, and this was from a while ago too, around that same time, where they were talking about how the business councils that Trump put together with all the CEOs in order to figure out things, they ended up dissolving and the CEOs ended up leaving. Well, that's probably because, let's be quite honest, Trump probably sat down in the room with them and said, look, I understand what you're doing. I understand that you're embezzling money out of the American taxpayer. I understand that what you're doing is basically tantamount to economic extortion, allegedly, and it's gonna stop. The buck stops here. So when Trump's telling him this, it's obvious that they are telling them this. It's obvious they don't really want to work with him. They understand what he's doing is real and they need to watch out. So the next questions are pertinent to what we just talked about, where it's saying why, who has the power, who has control. If POTUS was not in control, would they be retreating? All of these questions relate to exactly what I was just saying. If you think about them in context, Trump went to these business CEOs and said, look, for those of you who don't know, we're not going to allow you to fleece America anymore. We're not going to allow you to steal from the American taxpayer anymore. We're not going to allow you to infiltrate government through your lobbying campaigns in order to buy off politicians that then can give you the favor in corporate or legal battles or whatever, so that you may make more money, whether it's contracts or litigation or whatever it is. So that's exactly what Q is pointing to there, I think. That's what's ending, and it's good for people like us because we're patriots and we love our country, and we obviously don't want that to be the case, especially behind the scenes where you have corporate America running the government. That is not the way it's supposed to go. It's supposed to be we the people running the government, not the corporations of this fine country, because as much as we love and respect our corporations, and they can even be people if they want, they should not be in control of our government just because they have the majority of the cash. Okay. So we're going to jump into the next set of posts here. So who is the Attorney General? Obviously, Jeff Sessions. Who must approve the firing, dismissal of DOJ officials? Obviously, Jeff Sessions. Now it says reread the DOJ organizational change open source information, right? Well, there are some very interesting older Q posts about the DOJ that I thought definitely warrant taking a look at. So if we look at them, let's go ahead and take a look from the beginning. All right. So here's the first one. And you guys know this one because we talked about it in a previous episode where we're talking about Q's telling us who has been removed from the FBI in this cryptic sense, right? So the corruption in the FBI was all the way at the top, the number one, the number one, the number two, which obviously was referring to James Comey, Andrew McCabe, and previous director Robert Mueller. Then it's talking about the DOJ, where you have all of the previous heads of the Department of Justice being removed: the Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder and Rod Rosenstein. These people were removed because, or they're still there. Obviously, I think it's different who the number two is being referred to. But anyway, it's saying plus 18. It's giving us an idea here of how you obviously have a lot of people who are bad, they're corrupt, and they're involved at the top highest levels of the FBI and the Department of Justice. Then you go up here and you read talking about election fraud cases that are open right now. This is very important. Okay, now we'll continue because we're going to skip through this. We're not going to read each or every one of them. Then the next one talking about how the Department of Justice is involved with the AN0N investigation, right? This is all very important. We have to take this all together. Christopher Steele being investigated by the Department of Justice is very important as well. And what Q is trying to pull together here is that there is, and this was a disturbing one where we exposed this Rachel Chandler thing where she was obviously involved in some kind of very nefarious stuff. Thank you to each and every one of you ANONs out there and viewers and watchers who called the FBI after this was posted. I know we got contact to the FBI and that this is being remedied as we speak, but this is like child human trafficking taking place in front of our eyes here. Thank God we're here to get rid of it. But Q is also talking about how the DOJ is involved with the Fusion GPS thing and the witch hunt with Christopher Steele, obviously. So it just goes on and on. So it takes you all the way up into here, which is really important because they're saying how they don't get credit. The audits, they do a lot of work. I mean, some of these people are just like amazing. And they're getting frustrated that there's not a lot of open arrests, right? But it's very interesting to see how Q responds. He's talking about how the FBI and the DOJ are two of the cornerstones of our justice system. I mean, the FBI is the nation's top criminal investigation organization, and then you have the DOJ, which is the top prosecutorial branch of the government in charge of the judiciary. So, I mean, in order to make a system that does not fail, and in order to prevent cases from getting thrown out of court because of corrupt officials, you have to clean out the organizations first and then prosecute individuals. You can have an ongoing investigation, but you need to weed out the Peter Strokes and the Lisa Pages, these people who are obviously involved in partisan political sabotage. I mean, it's fairly obvious to me. It's all alleged at this point, but I mean, let's be honest. Who among us has not looked at the Peter Strzok and Lisa Page texts in broad and said, or in brief and said, there is obviously some sort of bias against the President of the United States here? That's fairly obvious to me. I'm just bringing this all to your attention because I think it's very important to discuss. So that's it. Who is the FBI director? That is James Comey. Who must approve the firing dismissal of FBI agents? Or not James Comey, excuse me, Christopher Wray. Sorry, that was a slip. But who must approve it? Obviously, Christopher Wray. reread the FBI organizational change posts. Well, there's a lot of FBI posts. There's over, I think, around 40 posts, and it's hard to go through each and every one of them. But I can tell you that the important things to draw away are the same things that are being drawn from the DOJ posts, because they all talk about the same thing. They talk about corruption inside of our government, and how if you have the top law enforcement agency in the country with the top judicial organization in the country being corrupted, infiltrated by corrupting forces, then you have to clean that out first, because you can actually lose the integrity of law. And like Q's pointed out before, there are so many people out there who could contest their conviction based on the fact that if you take a person like, let's say, Peter Strzok, who's obviously a bad actor, he's evil, he loves Hillary, he was against Trump, he's a partisan player, he's obviously being implicated in this as being an alleged conspirator against the president of the United States. But I mean, imagine the other cases he's worked on. What if he's locked up pedophiles? What if he's locked up real criminals? What if he's done some actual patriotic stuff for our country? You know? And I don't mean to say that he's a patriot given his alleged activities, but I'm saying that what if he's done some good things for our country, and what if those good things could be overturned because of his implication in being a criminal in this one particular instance? Obviously, these are all allegations. These are not factually confirmed yet. But I can tell you this, that's the dilemma that we face here with the DOJ and the FBI, is that there's even some of these bad actors that we look at on a daily basis. There is a possibility that they were behind the conviction of some much worse people. And it could be said that those previous convictions could be brought into contention because of the fact that somebody was exposed for being a criminal, such as when you talk about Peter Strzok, what happened with General Flynn and the 302 and the falsifying of information allegedly. So please understand that there's so much more going on here behind the scenes that we all have to understand is quite important to understanding the overall situation we find ourselves in, which is quite precarious given the fact that we have to uphold the standards that the United States is known for globally. We're not a third world country. We're not a dictatorship. We're not anything other than a republic that follows a certain set of guidelines in order to effectively make positive change in the world. So this could all undo some pretty important things that we've already gone over, but we're going to jump back into what Q is saying here. If Sessions and Wray are DC swamp deep state, why are they cleaning their respective houses? Well, obviously, they're working on their own FBI and DOJ in their own way, which with Wray, I think, is more overly about holding internal or turning over investigations to the Inspector General as well as John Huber, and kind of staying out of it, but then running the FBI, because criminals are still acting against our country who are not involved in politics, who are just criminals who need to be prosecuted and investigated and found out. Now, Sessions, on the other hand, is in charge of the judges and the others who are in charge of making and obtaining law, or upholding law in our country. Not necessarily making it, in some cases establishing precedent. So he's actively working with many different districts across the country in federal courts to appoint the right people, to get the right people in place, to uphold federal law where it's deemed necessary to uphold, especially when you have the border issue in California, which I think's on the radar. So that's what they're both independently doing. And I don't think that they're in the swamp or the deep state. I think that my personal opinion is and it could be completely wrong, it very well may be, but that it's all kabuki, it's all political theater, and that this is all misdirection to keep the cabal off of Sessions and off of Wray, because they don't need the media following them, hounding them, embellishing stories about them, and so on and so forth, because it would hinder their progress as far as investigatory capacity goes. So I really want to just cover that in brief, because if that is the case, I don't want to bring a light to it as much as I just want to share it with you guys here. Talking about us using logic, that's my best logic on this. If you guys have better intel, please let me know. Why are they slow walking unredacted data? Why are they slow walking document disclosure? Why is the White House backing up the DOJ? What if the same data is being used by other investigations? What does it mean if a grand jury is impaneled? Well, there's a lot here, and that's very interesting to think about. So why are they slow walking the unredacted documents regarding the stroke and page text? Why are they slow walking the document disclosures that have been subpoenaed by the Congress? I think that's quite simple. Quite simply put, what they're slow walking is documents that will prove there's investigations going on behind the scenes. And what do I mean by that? Well, let me explain. The way it would work is this. Because Devin Nunes and others have subpoenaed for information from the Department of Justice, they have to give that information over. But the only loophole that would prevent them from having to give that information over is if that information was actually being used in an ongoing investigation. So, what is going to come out in the next, I don't know, I'd say a week, couple weeks maybe, is going to be uncovering the fact that there are active investigations going on, and that information will not be able to be disclosed yet because it could negatively affect the the court proceedings. So that's what I believe is going on behind the surface, or going on beneath the surface. And I think that you guys out there can give me your opinion, but when you read these succinctly every day and you get a good idea of it, you get a feeling for what it actually means. And I think that's exactly what they're referring to, is the fact that Jeff Sessions, behind the scenes, without having any media scrutiny, has been able to put together like several investigations into the Hillary Clinton servers, from the Hillary Clinton servers to pedophilia and Satanism and all that, the occult, and everything in between, including this NXIVM sex cult, and so on. That is all being combined into this larger investigation. And we're going to talk about how the Inspector General and John Huber are actually one and the same to a degree, because they have the same prosecutorial powers and or the same investigative powers and subpoena powers and all of that. So we're going to go ahead and see what happens. But he says, what does it mean if a grand jury is impaneled? Now, for those of you who don't know, briefly, grand jury is basically, all it is a thing that we use here in our democracy in the United States, in our republic, in order to determine whether or not to bring indictments against an individual or individuals. In certain cases, they can have a special grand jury, which is for some kind of conspiratorial criminal accusations or indictments that are being brought against maybe mafia or whoever. But there's basically a grand jury is a group of individuals who serve at the behest of the state or the government or the federal government in order to review a set of facts to determine whether or not there's sufficient criminal evidence to bring indictments against those who may or may not have been involved in a crime. That's the simple meaning of a grand jury being impaneled. But why is it important to what we're talking about here? Well, quite simply put, you have grand juries that could be being impaneled behind the scenes to indict certain individuals who are involved with very, very bad things, such as the Uranium-1 deal, such as other nefarious AN0N brother activities in the DNC server investigation. So rest assured that things can be going on behind the scenes that can't become public, because then they would affect the investigation. So understand that there's a lot more to this, and there's a lot more that may be going on beneath the surface that we may not actually be able to see right now. Next post is saying, why are confusing questions asked as to outcome regarding Mueller? What would be the purpose of creating confusion? What and okay, so these two questions kind of go right into each other's um, lap here. You have, why would confusing questions be asked about Mueller? Well, what confusing questions is Q referring to? Well, there's this, and basically there's a debate going on behind the scenes where um, nobody's really sure where Mueller's loyalties lie, but everyone's very sure that he's gone on a fishing expedition, and that this, and what a fishing expedition is that the original outlying purview for the special counsel was for him to investigate the connection between Russia and Trump and the election, and was there or was there not collusion. Now it's evolved into raiding Michael Cohen and his family's domiciles in order to obtain classified attorney-client privileged information from the President of the United States Attorney regarding a payment to a porn star who is categorically proven to be a liar. And I'll say this openly, I've yet to have anybody call me on it. She's categorically, Stormy Daniels is categorically the definition of a liar, and in my opinion, is starting to look more and more like an extortionist every day. So that aside, and if you want proof on how she's a liar, she's made written statements saying that she never had sexual relations with the president, and now she's coming out and saying she did, and she's using it as a means to extort money from the president. So obviously, that is the categorical definition of a liar, and it's looking more and more like she could possibly be an extortionist, her and her slimeball attorney, every day. And so that is what's going on with the Mueller investigation. Everybody's like, why has this gone off the rails? Why has it gone into the Stormy Daniels thing? And nobody's given a good explanation. So I think it's fairly obvious that Mueller is compromised and that Rosenstein is compromised, and we will have to see how that goes. But the next questions are important to that. What was Sessions' Senate confirmation vote? What was Rosenstein's? Well, that's a great question. So here you see that Jeff Sessions had a very close vote in the Senate for his confirmation as Attorney General. And this would be expected, 52 to 47. He barely made the mark to become the Attorney General of the United States. So that tells you that there is 47 members of the United States Senate who do not like Jeff Sessions, because probably, in my opinion, he's going to prosecute each and every one of the criminals in Congress, and they're too afraid or compromised to actually effectively want to do the same thing. They just want to keep the status quo because they're locked in as actual hostages, I guess you would say. A lot of these senators are just being beholden to the lobbying groups. But here's Rosenstein's numbers. Well, look, he had 94 to 6. That was his confirmation. So a little bit different than Jeff Sessions, which kind of gives a little bit of credence to what Q's saying when he says trust Sessions. But that's just my opinion. You guys will let me know what you think in the comments. But after what Q says there, he says if Rod Rosenstein is dirty, Mueller must also be dirty. If Mueller is dirty, Rod Rosenstein must also be dirty. That's kind of one of those if one is the other, then the other is one type scenarios. So here you go. You obviously have Q telling us exactly what's going on. The question then becomes, what is the common denominator? And the common denominator, in my opinion, is the DNC. It's Hillary Clinton. It's the fact that Mueller has been known to be a completely compromised individual ever since his early goings at the FBI. and in my opinion, allegedly, that's true. But and also Rod Rosenstein is obviously in the same boat as Mueller in that they are both two birds of the same feather, beholden to the same cabal that is the deep state globalists and the DNC radicals, if you will. So that's fascinating to me, and that's their common denominator, in my opinion. Now it says, why did Sessions pick Rod Rosenstein? And then he says, everyone has an opinion. Few have the facts. Few know the plan. Midterm save and push. I actually think that this was some clever long game stuff here on Q's part, and I'll explain exactly what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that did Sessions pick Rod Rosenstein to expose the corruption? I mean, think about it. As many people get on the boards here and are very upset about the fact that Rod Rosenstein was even selected to have this position, what if the game was a little longer than you thought? What if the game was a little more complex than you thought? What if the 4D chess was something you couldn't really necessarily, none of us, I mean, I'm including myself, could have had the foresight to see? And what would that 4D chess consist of? Well, quite simply put, if you think about it, let's say Rod Rosenstein was corrupt and Jeff Sessions found out. And it's the principle of you give a person enough rope, you know what I mean? And they may end up giving enough rope to hang themselves, basically. You keep giving them as much rope as they want. And it's not like he did it purposefully, because Rod Rosenstein was representing himself as a good actor. Obviously, not a lot of proof other than circumstantial stuff to suggest that he may not be a good actor. But it'll all come out in the wash as to how and who he is in character and in deed. But this is exactly what we're talking about here, is that there could be stuff going on beneath the surface that we don't know. It says, few have the facts, few know the plan. This could all have been a part of the plan, and it could be something that's going to be exposed here before the midterms in order to get that pushback going red. Because right now they're talking about the blue wave that's coming, and it's looking less and less like a blue wave and more like a blue crest at this point. More like a blue puff in the water. So we'll have to wait and see how that ends up going. And if you guys have any thoughts, please share them down in the comments. Now it's saying swing voters to retake House, Senate. Impeachment proceedings open source initiated. Power at all costs. Blue wave, use logic. So that's just talking about the Democrats who have gone insane trying to get power back. And if they do end up retaining power in the House and Senate, or getting a majority in both those areas, they could open a impeachment process against the president. Maybe that's what's going to happen. Maybe Q has been warning us about it. Maybe that's all part of the plan too. I mean, this is all 4 and 5D chess. Maybe they're going to allow the impeachment process to go through, because then Trump can go testify and expose the corruption and evil that he's been briefed on as the president. Wouldn't that be nice? But that's just a thought. We don't know yet exactly what that's going to show. Only time will tell. But they do want power at all costs, and they're not afraid to do whatever they have to do. So it says, why must the DOJ and the FBI be cleaned first? What is the DOJ responsible for? What is the FBI responsible for? Why did HRC get a free pass? Use logic. So we've talked about this. The DOJ and the FBI, you have the top law enforcement agency in the country, and then you have the top judicial organization in the country. If you corrupt those, then you corrupt the whole system, and you leave it liable to such things as criminals being able to appeal their convictions. And that is terrifying for a lot of people who have been on the other end of that, where there have been victims, and if you're a victim of a criminal, especially when it's picked up by the FBI, let's say a human trafficker, and then it comes out later that that person has a lawyer who finds out that Rosenstein, let's say, for instance, is dirty and corrupt, and then they go back and say, well, Rosenstein prosecuted my case, and now all of a sudden that person is going to get off get out of jail because they have been cleared on, or they have been acquitted on a technicality, right? That's what we need to be quite aware of. Now, why did HRC get a free pass? Well, it's fairly obvious. She has dirt on everyone, and she was looked at as the logical person to become the next president. Now, here's an interesting one that I want your help on. I really appreciate it when you guys help me out here. I've actually tried to figure out what it means when it says define single shooter. Now, Huber is obviously the person who goes by the name of John Huber. Now, who is John Huber? Well, let's just take a look. Oh, I'm going to pull up that right now. So John Huber is the one who's going to the one who is involved in investigating the FBI, but he's basically a special counsel, and this article kind of lays it out. He's basically a special counsel in every way but name. He's able to impanel grand juries. He's able to bring criminal indictments if the grand juries say so. So his investigation is actually almost as important as what's going on with the inspector general. And I think his investigation has more to do with the stuff that everyone here on the Q boards is frantically waiting to hear about. Because you have this entire investigation going on behind the scenes that we can't know about all of this corruption and criminality that we're pointing out on a daily basis that nobody's picking up in the mainstream media. So my hope is that Huber is one of the good actors who's working behind the scenes in order to effectively become the new inspector general through his basic appointment to special counsel without actually being a special counsel. Now, it's saying, when does Sessions step back in? It already is. Well, maybe Sessions is working with Huber behind the scenes as part of the bigger, broader undercover investigation that's going on, beneath the surface. That would be very interesting. Why did Sessions secretly engage Huber? Why did Sessions reveal Huber? Timing is everything. Well, I'm not sure on the timing of revealing Huber, but I know that he engaged him in order to do exactly what we're talking about here. So, next thing says, Department of Justice does not discuss ongoing investigations or confirm specific matters. What about the active investigation into leaks? Horowitz, and this is a quote, Horowitz oversees a nationwide workforce of more than 450 special agents, auditors, inspectors, attorneys, and support staff whose mission is to detect and deter waste, fraud, abuse, and misconduct in the DOJ programs and personnel to promote and to promote economy and efficiency in department operations, end quote. This is Horowitz, who is the inspector general, who has put out his report, who is investigating things like Lisa Page and Peter Strzok and their text messages and other things that are obviously corruption and obviously need investigating. I think we should trust Horowitz for now, especially if he's working with Sessions and Huber in order to put together this brilliant 4D chess, in my opinion. But what this is saying here, it's pointing to the fact that the leaks that have been going on are being investigated. I mean, think about it. All the way back to when Trump first got in office and we were leaking out his private phone calls between him and the heads of state of other countries. So this has been going on for a while right now, and I think it's expanded out into like things like Hillary Clinton Foundation, Uranium One, the pedophilia, the globalists, the Luciferian Satanists. I'm really, really hopeful that that is what is going on behind the scenes. Now, the next one says, why did Mike Pompeo step into the CIA prior to the Secretary of State? They are deeply connected, think offshore. Military intelligence providing support during this time. This is all talking about stuff that we've covered before, but it's very important to understand that Mike Pompeo is obviously a good actor. He went to the CIA because the CIA had hijacked the State Department. They had hijacked our global relations. You have to understand that when you look at what the State Department is responsible for and what the CIA are responsible for, they almost have conflicting interests, because The State Department is supposed to work in the light, under oversight, fair and reasonable oversight of the Congress and the American people in order to make diplomatic moves on behalf of the country as a whole. Whereas you have the CIA that works in the night under the cover of darkness without any, in some cases, judicial or congressional oversight in order to enact policy globally on behalf of the United States. So there's obviously a conflict of interest when you put those two together. And it's time that the oversight wins, that the light wins, that they can't work behind the scenes in darkness, because that only breeds corruption. It breeds terrible, terrible people who obviously have stepped in and taken power now and are deeply connected to pretty awful stuff that we're going to expose here in the future. But you guys will have to stay tuned for that. Now, it says, and we think, I'm sorry, let me just finish here. You think offshore. Well, I'm thinking offshore means other countries, other shell companies that the CIA has where they keep money, ways of them storing money outside the United States, the billions, if not trillions, they've siphoned off of the taxpayers in order to keep their secret government going behind the scenes. That's definitely what I think they're referring to. But military intelligence is helping out, and they're going to put a stop to it. We have a lot of great people working behind the scenes, so we have to put our trust in them. Now, it says, why are select executive orders aggressively being written and put into law? Obviously, there is so much going on behind the scenes that it's really, really important to understand that Donald Trump has been signing and putting into law many executive orders that have been dealing with human trafficking and the funds preceding that, and other things that are involved with criminal activity on a global scale that will allow the army to get involved. It allows a establishment of a state of emergency. It allows the enactment of special executive privilege powers, special executive powers, I should say, that allow Donald Trump to extrajudicially make decisions that he otherwise would not be able to make in a state of peace or non-emergency. So these are things that are very important to understand that are going on behind the scenes. Now, the next one, I think it's a state/CIA next, but I think what it's saying here is that the CIA is somehow intrinsically connected to California, and it's saying that the state of California is next. So that's my take on it. If you guys have a different interpretation, please let me know what you think in the comments. But it says, think logically, no outside comms, justice, Q. So we all need to think logically, and there is no outside comms. Q is not communicating with anybody outside of this board. If they tell you that, then they are obviously lying, according to Q. And justice is the name of the horse that won the Kentucky Derby, which is amazing. And it was the name of all the post pictures that Q was posting, which I thought was fantastic. So there's obviously synchronicity happening here. Somehow they know things that are going to happen in the future. And I don't know how you know what horse is going to win the Kentucky Derby, other than to say that it's a pretty incredible coincidence, if you ask me. Now, like I said, at the end of this video, we're going to talk about Jerome Corsi very, very, very briefly. But a lot of people are pointing to a few things here. Okay, let's just talk about it. I'm going to air it out. And I want to hear your thoughts and opinions, because I'm not sure what to make of it all yet. But first, you have Anons were posting this a lot back in the boards when it all came out about who was to trust, or be careful who you follow, posts that Q put up. And I think this is the guy who runs the Patriots soapbox here. And you scroll down and you see they have Dr. Corsi here, where it's talking about Dr. Jerry Corsi with the Rockefellers and talking about how they're all connected to some conspiracy together, and how he got $1.2 million back in the day. I'm not sure what to make of all this, but I can tell you this. He started out making great Q posts and making great analysis, and it seems like he's had great contacts But I'm just confused as to why everybody's kind of turning on him now. But if you guys want to let me know what you think in the comments, I'm still doing research on this. I'm not going to issue a definitive opinion here, or neither one way or the other at this point, because I just don't have sufficient data to go on, right? But this is what we're seeing here. So obviously they're talking about Patriot Soapbox and so on, and Dr. Corsi. So we'll have to wait and see what that turns into. But that's going to be basically it for this episode. If you're looking for a way to support the channel, the best way to support the channel is to come here. If you have not hit that subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications. That way, as soon as these videos get posted, you'll be notified. If you're looking for another way to help the channel, scroll down, leave your thoughts, insights, and theories in the comments. Let me know what you think about all of this. Because like I say, basically, we have our own kind of QAnon research boards at the end of each one of these videos in the comments section, where we have a lot of great, thoughtful, insightful people come together and give their thoughts and insights and input on what they think Q's saying. So go down there. Even if you can't comment, just scroll down and read through the comments. I guarantee you're going to learn something you didn't know previously. Now, tonight's a special night. As we have hit our first goal, which you guys see here, we reached our second goal, which was 250 patrons. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. Tonight we're going to thank every one of you at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. But if you want to support the channel another way, please come here to patreon.com. That's patreon.com. And you can search Just Informed Talk. You'll come here to this page, click this button to become a patron, and please contribute what you can. You can come check out my rewards and my goal. We have a new goal to get to 500 patrons, which I think we're already strong on the way there. But if you want to check out the new goals, definitely, or the new rewards, come check that out, because we have one new reward here. And for those of you who are already contributing, your shirts that you got from the last run, the limited edition first run Just Informed Talk is Trump QAnon t-shirts, they're being sent out tomorrow. And if you want the new reward, you're going to have to go and update your Patreon patron status to be contributing back at this level. And once you click this button and redo that, you'll be able to be eligible to get this hat. So definitely, if you guys are interested, it's a cool hat. It'll start a great conversation, and you're helping a good cause, because a portion of the proceeds from this channel go to charity, and a portion of them go to help keep this channel alive, and a portion of them go to help make these hats for you. So if you guys want to come contribute at that level, that would make a big difference. And if you're already contributing at that level, you're going to have to go and re-click that to make sure you're still there, so that you'll be eligible to get that hat. But that's going to be it for this episode. So I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Then we're going to talk about the most important thing. The most important thing is God's love. And the most important thing to know is that there are people out there who are struggling right now. There are people right now who are going through hardship. They're dealing with adversity, and they're dealing with things that are unimaginable to most of us. But the beauty is watching God work through them, watching God give them strength, watching God steady their resolve to follow through on the path that they've chosen, understanding that their righteousness will be honored by God in the long run. There's so much evil out there that we fight on a daily basis on our own, that we have to embrace God's love, and we have to draw God's love closer to our hearts in order to steady our hearts and steady our minds, so that we may fight this evil and fight it well, and not submit to it, and not let it overcome us. We have to push ourselves to seek God every day. I know for me, I struggle, but I know people who are going through tough stuff right now, who I absolutely care about immensely. And the best advice I give them is to follow God, trust God, pray to God, do everything you can to reach out to God, and make sure that you are doing your part to seek God's wisdom, to seek God's advice, to seek God's guidance. and trust in our Lord Jesus. So we're going to read 1 John chapter 5, verses 1 through 6, and it's very telling about God's love. And I hope this resonates for some of those out there who are struggling with things very similar to what I've described just previously. But it says, "Everyone who believes that Jesus is the Christ has been born of God, and everyone who loves the parent loves the child. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and obey his commandments. For the love of God is this, that we obey his commandments. And his commandments are not burdensome, for whatever is born of God conquers the world. And this is the victory that conquers the world, our faith. Who is it that conquers the world but the one who believes that Jesus is the Son of God? This is the one who came by water and blood, Jesus Christ, not with the water only, but with the water and the blood. And the Spirit is the one that testifies, for the Spirit is the truth." And that speaks volumes. God's love is overwhelming. And God's love is everything that we should seek on a daily basis. But we have to obey his commandments. And we have to understand that his commandments are not burdensome. They're going to be to our benefit. And if we follow him and our faith is true, he points out that we will be the ones that will conquer the world. We will be the ones who believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And if you're struggling and if you're having a tough time, remember, God has a plan for you, and it's a good plan. And it's going to put you in a place that you need to be. And you may have to learn a lesson or two along the way, but eventually God puts you where you deserve. And he will bless you, and he will bless your family, and he will bless everyone you love, as long as they seek him every day and love him as he deserves to be loved. So if you don't take anything else away from this episode, please take that away. I know this has been a longer episode, but I just want to thank each and every one of you for sticking around through it. Again, if you have not hit that subscribe button yet, please come here, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications. But that's going to be it for this episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching again. This has been Just Informed Talk. I'm Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.